You ever feel like you're talking to a brick wall when talking to your kids? In today's video, I'm going to share with you valuable tips on how to get your kids to listen without beating it out. Let's start by asking why they aren't listening in the first place. So there's a few different things that come to mind that I think are probably some of the most common that people deal with. Could be distractions like their favorite TV show or that darn phone that they're always on. They could be testing your boundaries, or your boundaries aren't what you think they are, or your kids are just looking for your attention. Let's talk about distractions. Stop and ask yourself, are they playing a video game? Are they sucked into their phone? Are they watching TV? When this is going on, you are fighting for their attention. And believe me, you won't win that battle. Games and social media are designed to grab and hold people's attention. They are experts at this, and you are not. Raising your voice and yelling at them isn't always going to do the trick. And if it does, I believe it builds resentment towards you. And in some cases, depending on how much you yell, it can create a traumatic experience for them. And that's something that they're gonna have to deal with when they get older. Let's talk about boundaries. Kids love to push and test boundaries. We all do if we're being honest. The question is, are you being consistent with your rules and your boundaries? Are you consistent with your punishments? Do you tell them, I'll take this or that away, or you'll get punished if you keep doing that, and then you don't do it because maybe you don't have the energy, or maybe you don't want to punish your child, you love them, and you don't want to bring discomfort and sadness to them. When you tell them not to jump on the couch, do they ignore you multiple times? Do they look at you and keep going? If this sounds like you, then they're probably testing your boundaries. Or they could be doing the next one. They could be trying to get your attention. I wasn't going to mention this one, but I felt that it was so important and a very common one. And it really does go hand in hand with boundaries. And the question to ask yourself is, are you giving your children enough attention? Do you have multiple kids? Or you just have a lot going on in life? You have baseball going on, and you got to go to the grocery store, and then this person's coming over, and it's just, your life is just busy, busy, busy. Are all of your interactions with your kids negative? Constantly correcting them, they're always messing something up, or just annoying you constantly? They're probably just looking for your attention. So what can we do about all of this? Well, when we're dealing with distractions, the best strategy that I have found in dealing with someone who is distracted is to touch them. Put your hand on their shoulder or touch their hand and look at them. This will pull their attention away from whatever they're doing, and they'll look at you. This is when you can speak to them. Don't try to talk to them while they're watching the video. This will pull their attention away from whatever they're doing and look at you. This is when you can speak to them. Otherwise, you're just going to get frustrated that they aren't listening to you and they're not paying no attention to you. You can start by asking them to pause whatever it is that they're looking at. If they're watching YouTube videos or they're playing a game, ask them to pause whatever they're doing, because otherwise they're just going to get re-distracted. Maybe you don't have an issue with your kids being too distracted because maybe you don't give them phones and you don't let them on much technology. If you have unruly children who are always pushing boundaries and things of that nature, I would sit them down and establish some ground rules that are going to be in place going forward. Kind of give them a heads up as to the changes that are about to go down, that you're about to implement into your house. And explain your rules, explain the consequences, and explain to them, when you do call on them and you ask them to do something or not to do something, that you already kind of have some punishments kind of already set up, and you let them know what those are going to be. And then it's very important, you must enforce them. This also means you shouldn't just throw random consequences out at them that you're not willing to enforce. Telling them, if you don't stop jumping on the couch, you can't go to your friend's house. And maybe they jump on the couch 3 or 4 more times. Yeah, that's pushing boundaries. If you're not willing to not let them go to their friend's house, you should not have said that. Because now if you go and let them, now your threats are empty. They don't believe your threats. That's kind of why you're in the situation you may be in. And I believe that yelling should only ever be reserved for emergencies. I've heard it said before that a child whose mother is always yelling, nothing is an emergency. If the way you talk to and correct your children from something simple, like hey, pick your shirt up off the floor, if you come with the same tonality and aggression as you would do if there were a venomous snake close to your child, when you yell, they're not going to take you seriously. It's no different than my shirt's on the floor, because you have to raise the stakes to get their attention. This can be very dangerous for you and your children. And this is why I think that our yelling should always be reserved. You should be very careful about your yelling, because everything isn't as serious as the next thing. Attention. You know, I read that children need a certain level of adult attention throughout any given day. It's like they just have to get a certain threshold of attention from adults. I mean, children are very dependent upon adults. It's a survival mechanism. But some kids are better at getting adult attention than others. Some kids just don't know how to get positive attention, so they seek negative attention. Negative attention is still attention. You know, deep in their brain, they still know, okay, I am seen. I'm not being forgotten. Because if a child gets forgotten, well, they die. It's almost like they need to know that everyone still knows they're there, especially the adults. If they're seeking attention and you start fussing at them, you're giving into their demands for attention. And they just got what they wanted, so they'll keep doing it. I would say to make sure that you're having way more positive interactions than negative interactions throughout the day. I would try to ignore them when they're misbehaving. If it's not a serious thing, ignore them. And whenever they do stop doing whatever they're doing, let's say jumping on the couch, and you know, if you think it's just going to last a second, whatever, you let them finish. When they get down, that's when you turn your attention to them, and you know, praise them for not jumping on the couch. Give them the attention that they were seeking in the first place. Be careful doing this approach, as too much can backfire on you. They may begin to associate starting to act up and then stopping will get them attention. So make sure that you're giving them positive attention without having to act up first. You know, it can be difficult, but you have to pay very close attention to your children and praise them when they do things. Just look for ways to give them attention. You know, if you have multiple kids, that our job as parents is to raise our kids to be adults. They are people just like us. You know, I like to ask myself, would you allow your boss to treat you the way you treat your kids? And if the answer is no, then maybe something needs to change. Whenever we tell our children to do something and they refuse, or they don't do what we've asked them to do, you lose authority points, so to speak. You don't want to be negative in authority points. Every time they do what you say, you gain an authority point. So you always want to try to make sure you're staying on the positive. The more authority points, you know, the more they'll listen to you. You know, and there should be a punishment of some kind when they don't listen to you. Even something as simple as walking over and putting your hand on their shoulder and asking them what the problem is. I know with my son, if I try to correct him, you know, maybe he did something, I like to pull him to the side and talk to him and explain to him what it is he did wrong, why it was wrong. And I don't want to do that in front of everyone else, because that's embarrassing. You know, in the same way, if you were at work, you wouldn't want your boss to call you out and correct you in front of everyone else. Doing all of these things can be challenging and exhausting, but I would say think of it as an investment, because that's what it is. You're investing into your children. You're investing into your own future, especially when you're trying to get your kids to listen better. It'll suck in the beginning and it'll get a little better and easier over time, that aspect. And then they turn 13, 14, and then good luck. Do you agree or disagree with what we've talked about here today? Let me know down in the comments. You can check out my other videos about empathy or the true cause of laziness, and I will see you guys on the next one.